All right, so the first thing which we left off on last time was the spread of a religion. So you would say, how prevalent is Christianity?
It's very prevalent. I think it's one of the top five religions in the world,
So how
right?
many Christians are there in the world off the top of your head?
I don't know. But I will say this. Usually 80% of people that go to church aren't actually believers. Like they'll show up to church, but they're not actually dedicated and they don't really pursue a relationship with God.
So they're just doing it for why?
Because they grew up that way or it's a routine or whatever, but they don't actually have a relationship with God. Now, I say 80% because that was a statistic someone said to me when I was in youth group. So that was like 10 years ago. So I hope that that's not accurate anymore, but
So does is that a bad thing? Does that reflect badly on it? Like, why are there so many fair
well, I
weather people?
think I think it's sad because those people that are in the routine of going to church, but they don't actually have a relationship with God and aren't committed to him, they're like so close, but they're choosing to not be. Like it's a pretty black and white. Like, are you committed to a relationship with God or are you not? And so they're going to church, but they're not, turning that color. So,
And like, why? I don't like out of the 20% then who do believe more severely, what percentage believe it 100% and live by it word for word? Probably
oh, I think
0%.
I would say that 100% of that 20%. No, I think like there are dedicated Christians in every church. So I would say, well, I mean, I don't know that. I think there are. So I'd say that there are 100% believers.
But do
There are
they follow it
100%.
word for word every last thing? Because we could look at it and we could find some nuanced
Well,
or like
yeah.
old historical thing that they reference, trading
Well,
oxen or whatever you brought up.
we all sin. Yeah, we all sin. No matter how dedicated you are to your faith. So, no. But
No,
that's
I'm not
why we
talking
have
about sin.
Jesus.
I'm talking about following it word for word. Like,
Mm,
it'll make reference to things you said, like, oh, you have to give somebody an oxen, you have to do things that were
yeah.
antiquated for that time period. So
Yeah.
nobody's doing it word for word because those things were traditions of the past.
Yeah, so those things were in the Old Testament before Jesus came, remember?
I guarantee you there's something in the New Testament. I'll have to make a list. Like, there's
If you find
nothing in the
something,
New
tell me.
Testament that you don't follow word for word every day.
If you find something, tell me and I can try and figure out because you might be right, but from what I know, all of that stuff's in the Old Testament and the New Testament is pretty clear about like the old has gone away and the new has come and that we are under a new law and we're not held by the Jewish law. But yeah.
So you would say though, no, nothing in the New Testament is contradictory or not consistent with the lifestyle of people who are Christians. Not a single thing.
I mean, I think like the circumstances were definitely different, but there's nothing that comes to mind that's like, oh, that's totally wrong?
Let me see if I can find something.
Yeah, if you can find something, tell me, and I can try and figure out the context.
But I'm talking more about like daily life, and you can't tell me, okay, you're driving a car and you're living in modern technological society. It's not even I wouldn't have even have to go to, I'm sure I could find things that it specifically says to do that you don't do, that Christians don't do. But I can do it the opposite. There are things you do that are not mentioned there at all that couldn't have been mentioned there because of technology and different traditions now. So you're doing things every day that are not in there. So how does that fit in?
I mean, the Bible doesn't talk about like a daily routine that we're supposed to keep or something. Like it says that we are supposed to renew our minds daily and like all of that. But I know what you're saying, but that's not sinful, like to drive a car
I never
or
said it's
something.
sinful. I'm talking about living
Yeah.
in line with it. if we're
Well, I
treating it
would
as a
say,
credible absolute document.
yeah. I would say if you can find something that's like very relevant to, okay, this is definitely not what we do anymore, tell me, and I can try and figure something out. I'm looking real quick in the
No, but
Old
I'm
Testament.
asking from the other perspective. Forget about that point. I'm
Okay.
saying, okay, you drive a car and you watch movies and you consume
Yeah.
media and you eat fast food, maybe, whatever, like things that modern
Yeah, yeah.
people do.
Yeah.
None of those things are in there. So if you were
Yeah.
really a purist, it's not even saying there's anything wrong with those things, but you would prefer specifically what it says to do and life choices that it mentions, lifestyles that it mentions, rather than ones that happen to be the modern era of technology.
I think that would be more like, I mean, not to dog on the Amish, but the Amish, like, they have nothing to do with modern things. And that's kind of what it would be like if we were trying to do what you're vocalizing. And I don't think that's at all what the Bible is teaching. Like, I think having electricity and driving cars, I think those are great things that God has given us as gifts, honestly. Like,
But
He made people be able to make those things, and honestly, we can serve Him better with those tools. So,
but wouldn't it be more consistent if you didn't do those things because they're not mentioned? So aren't the Amish more consistent with it?
I don't think so. I think that's unnecessary. I think
But
it's adding and subtracting to the Bible, and that's also against the Bible.
but you're not. There's nothing in there that says use electricity. It doesn't mention electricity because there was no electricity,
Yeah.
which also proves that it's man-made and not absolute or omnipotent. Otherwise, they could okay, 1,000 years from now, does it say you should be driving a car, or 2,000 years from now you should be in a plane or something?
But that's a different thing because the Bible's not a book of rules. So if it was a book of rules and it was supposed to be written by God, then that would be something. He would add that stuff, but he didn't.
It's
And
not a book
so
of rules, but thou shalt not kill and this and that, and it's telling you all these things to do and how to live.
there's rules in it, but it's mostly stories and history and, you know, poetry and all of these different things.
So you shouldn't follow it then word for word, and you can just do whatever you want and interpret it.
No, I think you should follow it. But I'm just saying there's not like, okay, rule 157. Drive a car on the right-hand side of the road or you're going to get pulled over by a cop. Like there's nothing like that, obviously.
There's a lot of things like that. You
But
even brought up one yourself. You said oxen, something about oxen in the Bible.
yeah, but that's in the Old Testament. So I think whenever I was talking about that, I was saying that we live in the new covenant. Covenant means something that was promised between humans and God, and there was bloodshed that happened to make this covenant. The promise. The promise was Jesus, and that was his blood. So the covenant was that the old rules and stuff of the Jews. Well, actually, the covenant was that we could have salvation. But the main thing is those old laws in the Old Testament are not kept today because we would still be doing sacrifices and stuff, and we
Okay,
don't do
but the
those.
point is finally you're trying to kind of avoid the issue of so things that aren't mentioned in there, no matter what era we're in, there would be no technological boundary, or you just go along with whatever's current in your current time period, even though it has nothing to do with that. Like there's no self-imposed thing that okay, you're going to be a minimalist, you're going to be Amish. There's nothing like that that says you should do that, or that wouldn't be more
No.
consistent.
So there are virtue things like be a good steward. Okay, don't be a hoarder, Be a good steward of your things, be a good steward of your time. Or what was the other thing you said? Something about wait, what were you saying a second ago?
Just that it would be more consistent. I don't know.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So when it comes to like new stuff, so like phones, for example, don't make that an idol. Like if you're seeking all of these things like technology and TV or whatever as a distraction and something that's more important to you than God, then that's bad. So like we have things that it's almost like a net, like if it falls through the net, cut it off or whatever.
Okay, here. You shall eat it as barley cake, having baked it in their sight over a fire of human dung. What is that? Oh, that's Old Testament now, right?
That's Old Testament, I'm pretty sure. Wait, what book is it say?
Yeah, it says Old Testament.
Yeah.
Ezekiel 4:12, 15.
Yeah.
Okay, God sought to kill Moses until his wife Zipporah intervened by performing an emergency circumcision.
Yeah, that's also Old Testament.
Okay, New Testament. Jesus encounters a demon-possessed man, casts out the demons, and allows them to enter a herd of pigs, which then plunge into the sea. I guess that's just a weird one.
That's cool, right? No, that's pretty cool. Like all these people watched it happen too. Like 500 people were watching.
Jesus discusses eunuchs, noting that some choose celibacy for the sake of the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, that's like monks and stuff.
If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, they cannot be my disciple. Luke 14:26.
So that's talking about like priorities, like the amount of love you have for Jesus and like
But he says hate. You have to hate your family.
yeah, yeah, but it's like it's a comparison thing. Like the amount you love the Lord is so much that even though you love them so much, it's like so much different.
So do you hate your
Because
family?
he's not telling them to hate their
It
family.
says it. It says it.
It
It
does.
says
It
anyone
does.
that does not hate their father, mother, wife, and children.
I know it says that, but it's really just talking about the comparison. We've talked about this before in church a lot, a lot.
So you get to go behind the words and invent your own meaning, regardless what it says.
No, because like if you look at the rest of the context of what Jesus says about your family and loving people, like it actually says in the Bible not to hate. So that's just like a way he was speaking. I don't know if it was like a manner of speak or if it was uh I don't know, like a language thing.
And here he encourages cannibalism. Those who eat his flesh and drink his blood will have eternal life, a statement that confuses many people.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people are like, what the heck? So basically it's like, do you know about that?
I've heard it, but I don't know what it
Okay.
means.
Yeah. So there's a couple different names for it. Some people call it the Lord's Supper or Passover or the Eucharist, and the Catholic people call it Eucharist. But I'll just say the Lord's Supper. It's just usually churches once a month or so will have a tiny amount of grape juice and a tiny cracker. And they pray and talk about this certain passage in scripture where that verse is in. And it says, do this as often as you can together in remembrance of me. And it's like to remind us of like his body and his blood that he shed for us on the cross. So it's basically just a tradition that reminds us of how like grateful we are to have Jesus.
Okay, here's one. Women are considered ceremonially unclean during their menstrual period. Do not mate different kinds of animals. Okay, so we do that all the time in labs and stuff, and your tax money goes to support it. So do you have some reservation with that?
Yeah, we don't like that very much.
But you
But
still support it. You still allow it.
I mean, it's not something we talk about in the church, but it's not like I wouldn't be like, yeah, we should make mutant things. But it doesn't really come up.
Well, like, what stops you from being a part of a society that, like, what would it take for them to say, okay, we should leave and make our own society that follows these beliefs exactly?
Right. Well, I think actually a lot of Christians are trying to make like communes and stuff. They're trying to like buy big plots of land and live on them with their friends and homeschool their children and all this stuff. And that's a cool idea, but it's not all Christians at all. It's just a small portion. But I
Would that be
think
considered Amish basically or something else?
no, it would be called something else. Like a commune would be just kind of like you know how Mexican people sometimes have their parents and their grandparents all living in the same house?
And so do not plant your field with two kinds of seed, which people do all the time. So
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Wait, can you see what that verse was talking about?
Leviticus 19:19.
Oh, that's Old Testament too.
Uh, okay, no descendant of Aaron with a physical defect may offer food to God. Who is Aaron?
That is also Old Testament. That's Aaron is Moses' cousin.
Uh,
Moses is the one that got the Ten Commandments. I'm pretty sure.
and then there's one to do with slavery that would reinforce slavery, like or here, a
What book
rebellious
is it?
a rebellious son is to be stoned to death by the town's men.
Wait, can you say it again?
A rebellious son is to be stoned to death by the town's men.
Okay, what book is that?
Deuteronomy 21:18-21.
Yeah, that's like the fifth book in the Bible. It's in the New Testament or Old Testament.
Okay, but so you would say don't follow that then.
Yeah.
The law addresses the punishment for beating a slave, Exodus 21:20-21, emphasizing property status, so it's acknowledging slavery as a okay thing. At least it's saying some
That's
specific thing to do with
before,
it.
so that's before Egypt was even built. Like that was Old Testament.
Okay. So that's just your excuse. Everything's Old Testament, so it doesn't count.
I mean, it's true. That's what it says in the Bible. Like because Jesus, we have the new covenant.
But at one point the Old Testament was considered valuable and followed.
Hmm.
Like when?
Like 3,000 years ago.
A horrific story of abuse and betrayal occurs when a concubine is handed over to a mob. Judges 19:22-29.
Wait, what is it? Oh, Judges is also Old Testament.
Hmm. Yeah, like even the seed one was old or new?
Old Testament. What was that other one about breeding animals? Can you see that again?
Yeah, where was it? Or that was part of the same one, yeah.
Oh,
Leviticus.
yeah, Old Testament.
Whatever, I'm sure I can find one, but the point is, in the opposite sense, I think that's kind of contradictory because if, again, you're treating this as like it's an absolute and it's, right, like this isn't just something, oh, you're doing it as a hobby, right? It's a real life kind of, you say it's not a book of rules, but it would sort of govern your life in a lot of ways, so it kind of is telling you what to do a lot.